Okay, we're on the
Bernie,
record.
you're muted.
Good evening, all.
Hey, Davey. Bernie, you're muted.
I'm not muted now. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
I can't see me though. Why can't I see me? I mean, I know what I look like. Announcement is made that adequate notice of this meeting has been given and that is being conducted in accordance with NJSA 10:4-6 et sec of the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act. Roll call.
You're muted now, Nora.
Nora's
Got
muted.
that. Berkowitz,
Here.
Jaskowitz,
Here.
Kaplan,
Here, just for the record, camera's broken, so you won't see me.
Parikh,
Here.
Prasad,
Here.
Willens.
Here.
We also have with us our board planner, Mr. Chadwick, our board engineer,
Here.
who has some audio problems right now, and our board attorney, Mr. King.
Okay.
I am going to return. I have and get Chaz set up.
All right, we're going to skip the Pledge of Allegiance. I'm going to open the meeting to the general public who may be on board to say anything they want about anything that's not on tonight's agenda. Nor having left, she can't tell me if there's anybody there to talk. So speak up if you want to say anything. Hearing nobody.
I see no hands raised.
You see hands raised? Okay.
Now, Earl said he
Oh, Earl.
sees no hands raised.
Oh, well, okay. I didn't recognize your voice. Some. All right, on tonight's agenda, we have,
Resolutions.
we do have resolutions.
Mhm.
I don't have a copy of the agenda. That's my problem. I'm guessing you sent it an email and I didn't print it out.
Nora, do you want to read the
Nora,
resolutions?
what resolutions do we have on tonight, Nora?
Hold on, let me try to group some of them together, see what we can do. Okay, first group, application 2129 Norman Chapman, 135 Fox Hill Road, block 113, lot 11, zone R3. C variance to legalize a patio and walk, contrary to section 430-35, column 13. Application 2162, Mr. Sam Ben DeMorthy, 7 Norman Ave, block 557, lot 34, zone R4. C variance to construct a shed and patio expansion contrary to section 430-10 C and section 430-35 columns 10 and 13. And application 2136, Andres Carantis Coast, 228 Hiawatha Boulevard, block 592, lot 9, zone R4. C variance to construct a new 2-story single-family dwelling, roofed entranceway, porch, shed, open deck with stairs, generator, air conditioning unit, and 6-foot-high fence, contrary to section 430-35, columns 4, 8, 9, 10, and 13, and section 430-10I. Those who can vote are Berkowitz, Jaskowitz, Parikh. Those are the only ones here right now who can vote for those 3.
Is that enough?
Yes, you only need 1.
Oh, I thought you needed more than that. Oh, okay, I hear a motion to accept the resolutions set forth by Nora.
Motion.
Who made the motion?
Jaskowitz.
Second.
Casey,
Someone?
Casey second.
Okay,
Okay.
Berkowitz,
Yes.
Jaskowitz,
Yes.
Parikh.
Yes.
Okay,
What else you got? Anything?
hold on one second. Okay, all right, the next few, 2150 Adam Oslowski, 959 Vale Road, block 703, lot 7, zone R3, C variance, to construct slash install a pool patio expansion shed on a slab slash pad, pool filter and driveway expansion contrary to section 430-275H, section 430-10I, section 430-35, columns 10 and 13. And application 2155 Richard Kennedy, 119 Rainbow Trail, block 115, lot 8, zone R3. C variance to construct a driveway expansion and replace existing driveway area contrary to section 430-275X and section 430-35, column 13. And application 2123, 135 MBR LLC, 135 Beverwick Road, block 574, lot 61, zone B5. CD variance for a tutoring center and laundromat slash two principal uses on one lot. And those who can vote on those three are Berkowitz, Joskowitz, Kaplan, and Parikh.
Motion to approve.
Second, Casey.
Okay, motion was Berkowitz,
Jaskowitz.
Joskowitz, I apologize.
Silowitz.
Mm, oh, mm. Okay, Berkowitz,
Yes.
Joskowitz,
Yes.
Kaplan,
Yes.
Parikh.
Yes.
Okay, okay, the next three, will be done separately each. I'm sorry, there's only two left. Application 2045 Nakul Kaza Dwala, 130 Troy Road, block 726, lot 15, zone R3, CD variance. Bifurcated application to construct townhomes. Those who can vote are Berkowitz, Joskowitz, and Parikh and Willens.
So moved.
Is there a
Second.
second?
Second, Casey.
Call roll.
Berkowitz,
Yes.
Joskowitz,
Yes.
Parikh,
Yes.
Willens.
Yes.
And finally, application 2054 Danny Realty, 25 Route 46, block 770, lot 1, zone B2, preliminary and final major site plan with CD variance for a gas station and drive-through restaurant. And if you remember, the vote was to deny. Those,
Yes, vote denied.
right. So those who can vote to approve the resolution are Berkowitz, Kaplan, Parikh, and that's it.
One of you move the motion, please.
I'll move the motion, Casey.
Second. Who was the other one? Kaplan, I think, right?
Kaplan should be. Okay, Berkowitz,
Yes.
Kaplan,
Yes.
Parikh.
Yes.
Okay, and then the only thing we didn't do is this is an announcement for the members of the public who've joined this meeting on their computer and selected to use the phone option for audio. If you dialed into the system using your phone, you will not be able to raise your hand to comment. To have the ability to raise your hand and comment, you must do the following. Leave the meeting, rejoin the meeting. When selecting audio, choose the option to have the system call you and input a phone number you wish to be called on. This option will pair your computer with your phone and will allow you to raise your hand if you wish to comment during the public session. Take it away, Bernie.
Is there any correspondence?
No correspondence.
Okay. Then I guess we'll go to case 19:56, GTP acquisitions. The attorney for the applicant here. Virtually.
You're muted. The applicant's
Fennel.
attorney's,
Mr. Vogel, you're muted. Just go to the bottom. Yep, you're unmuted now.
That better?
There you go.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. I just, it would appear that there are only 5 members of the board present for this evening. Is that correct?
we have 6 right now and 1 will be late.
And I assume there will be the ability of whoever is not present to listen to the tapes
Uh,
meeting and view it if there's available.
That's correct. All the members who aren't here, we will send them a copy of the, or the link to the video and require that they review that video so that they can proceed on the application.
Good. Thank you, Mr. King.
Not a problem. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Berkowitz, with your permission, at the conclusion of the last meeting, Mr. Let's Stretch's testimony was concluded, and I have as my next witness, Mr. Michael Textoris.
Was he going under cross-examination when we stopped?
If my recollection is, and my notes indicate that it was completed, and as a matter of
Okay.
fact, the meeting was closed somewhat earlier than you would have gone when the chairman indicated, well, we're not going to start a new witness. So,
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Okay. So employ your witness, I guess.
all right, Mr. Testoris, may I have the witness sworn, please?
Mr. King,
Right.
wants to swear the witness?
Could you raise your right hand? You swear affirm the testimony you're about to give before the board is true, so help you God?
I do.
And for the record, can you state and spell your name?
Yes, my name is Michael Textoris, Textores.
And the testimony you'll be giving is expert testimony, correct?
That is correct.
Engineering?
Yes,
And your all your licenses are in full force and effect?
yes. I'm a professional engineer in the state, and my license is in good standing.
And you've been qualified either before this board or other boards in the state of New Jersey?
Numerous times, yes.
Mr. Chairman, the witness is qualified and has been sworn.
All right, you can begin, Mr.
Just briefly, I recognize that you've accepted him as an expert, as a professional engineer. Mr. Testoris, just give the board a thumbnail sketch of your educational and professional background, your experience.
Okay. Yes, again, I'm a professional engineer licensed in the state of New Jersey. I'm with the firm Van Cleef Engineering Associates, 755 Memorial Parkway in Phillipsburg. I've been with the firm approximately 30 years. I'm here this evening representing the applicant, GTP Acquisitions of Paterson, New Jersey. I'm a 1986 graduate of NJIT with a Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering Technology. I obtained my PE license from the state of New Jersey in 1989. And since that time, I've been providing expert testimony in the field of civil engineering, land use, and planning on a variety of residential, commercial, and industrial projects.
All right, Mr. Testoris, at the request of the applicant, do you undertake to draft the site plan, which is the subject matter of this board, of this variance application?
Yes,
Or would you first describe to the board the nature of the property and the parcel with which you were confronted for the design?
okay, I will. Can I share my screen, please?
Certainly.
It's not like that. Yeah. Okay, I got it. Okay. This is Exhibit 1. This is part of the set of plans that was submitted to the town in December, December of 2020. This is existing conditions / critical areas map. It's been revised. The revised date is 12/16/2020. This property this property is known as Block 66, Lot 96, located entirely in the township of Troy Hill, Parsippany Troy Hills, Morris County, New Jersey. Property is located along Littleton Road, also known as New Jersey State Highway 202. And the property is located between residential streets Dolly and Rita Drive. The property is located in the western portion of the township and is the current home of St. Christopher's Church, Roman Catholic Church. The site contains a total of 22.1 acres. The property is bounded to the north, which is up, to the east, which is to the right, and to the south, which is to the bottom, by residential properties. The property is bounded in the south and also in the west by the Parsippany Troy Hills High School. This site is currently located in a dual zone. The property south, east, and south and east of the existing church is located in the R3 residential district, which allows lots of 15,000 square feet. The portion of the site located north and west of the church is located in the R1 residential district, which allows lots of 40,000 square feet. The entire proposed project area, which is west of the existing church, is located entirely within the R1 zone. The existing improvements on this property are, for the most part, located in the eastern portion of the site and are associated with the Roman Catholic Church. That property contains a one-story house of worship, a two-story school in this vicinity here, a two-story convent, and a two-story rectory building. Portion of the site also contains a large macadam parking area, which services all 4 uses. The site currently has access along Littleton Road. Ingress, which is one way, is to the north, and egress is located to the south. Both driveways are one way, so you have a one-way driveway in and a one-way driveway out. The site is currently serviced by sanitary sewer and potable water, which are town-owned utilities, and also is serviced by natural gas. The drainage to this site is located in east of the church, towards the center of the parking lot. There's a large drainage pipe that drains the site, and the drainage goes from the south to the north, towards Dolly Drive. The western portion of this site, which is the subject of our application this evening, is a wooded and for the most part undisturbed. It contains a variety of mature trees, species, and I walked this site numerous times. There's numerous trees that have fallen down, large diameter trees that have fallen down through the years. I'm not sure if they're ashtrays or other types of trees, but noting when I walked the property, that there was a decent amount of trees that have fallen down. This portion of the site is sloped from the west to the east. Has an average slope of approximately 5 to 6%. Portions of the site towards the central portion of the site, you can see these shaded areas here, are critical area slopes, which are slopes identified by the Parsippany ordinance at slopes in excess of 15%. As part of our review of the existing site conditions, we contracted with Eastern States Environmental, who did a preliminary assessment of the property to determine if there was any freshwater wetlands, state open waters, or associated transition or riparian zones. During their site walk, they found two areas of what they considered marginal wetlands. There's an area located to the, I guess it would be to the northwest. Actually, the wetland area appears to be off our site. And then there's a second area that's located east of the convent building on the church property. It was Eastern State's opinion that these wetlands were intermediate value wetlands if they were submitted to the DEP for a letter of interpretation. Their opinion was that that's how they would be regulated. And those types of wetlands would have an associated 50-foot wide transition area. There were no there was no floodplains or any state open waters found to exist on the property. The site is located within New Jersey Highlands planning area, but the regulations of the planning area are not subject to this application. So I'd like to move my screen now to the overall conceptual site plan. This is a plan that, again, was submitted originally in December of 2020. It has a revised date of 12/16/2020. So the application this evening is seeking relief from the township's R1 zoning standards to allow for the construction of a senior independent assisted living facility on the western portion of Lot 96. As Les had described in a few meetings prior to this, the project encompasses a total of approximately 12 acres and will consist of 50 two-bedroom independent living cottages located in this area here, 50 one and two bedroom assisted living apartments. That'll be 12 two-bedroom and 38 one-bedroom, and they will have services. And they're located in this area here, and they are associated along with the amenities building. There's also 56 memory care units with services. They're located to the north and to the west of the amenities building. For the record, a number of these units will be affordable. The total number at this time is not known, but the applicant intends to fully comply with all applicable regulations with regards to affordable housing. I know that was a question that was brought up last meeting. Amenities to be provided for the members of the community will consist of a restaurant, which includes congregate dining facilities, a lounge, cafe, and an athletic center. Healthcare facilities will also be located in the amenities building. The memory care units, as I stated earlier, will be housed in 4 one-story buildings. There's 14 units per building, and again, they're located north and west of the proposed amenities building. Yes?
I didn't hear anything.
Okay. The cottages, the independent living cottages located in this area of the site. There are 21 of these cottages will have a one-car garage with associated driveway. The remaining units will be provided with on-street parking and parking spaces located in the covered parking areas, which are located in the central portion of the cottage area. Access to this area, as you all know, was originally through a property located on Rita Drive. That access or egress has now been eliminated, and access to the complex will be through the church property. And this will be accomplished by extending the existing northerly and southerly driveways of the church facilities. And again, this was done to address the public's concerns regarding Rita Drive. Currently, as I stated earlier, the church is serviced by a one-way ingress driveway to the north and a one-way egress drive to the south. just for the board's knowledge, we're finalizing our traffic report, and there are some discussions of possibly switching these accesses. I'm not going to get too involved into that tonight. That'll be part of the traffic testimony, but I just want to put that on the record that based on their findings, there may be some advantages to switching the driveways. But again, I'm not going to get into that discussion tonight. That'll be for the traffic engineer. As part of this application, there's a total of 187 parking spaces to be provided. They will consist of 21 private garages in the cottage area, which are these areas, these cottages in here. They will have associated private driveways, 21 to be, in total. 44 private covered 9x18 parking spaces, which will be located in this area here of the cottages. 23 9x22 parallel parking spaces, which are located throughout the cottage area, and also 78 9x18 parking spaces. Now, the 9x18 parking spaces will be associated predominantly with the amenities building and with also the assisted living apartments. As part of our internal circulation plan, we're proposing as part of this project a 16-foot wide emergency access drive located north and west of the memory care units. This access drive will consist of an 8-foot wide pedestrian path and an 8-foot wide service delivery aisle. The service delivery aisle is required to bring food and other amenities to the memory care units. But this will also allow emergency services to access the memory care units and also portions of the amenities building. The refuse generated by this site will be collected by the association and will be stored in the southwest portion of the site in this area here near the maintenance building. It will be removed up from the site using a private carter as necessary. A generator for the site is being proposed as well. The location of it is currently undetermined, but most likely will be located again in this southwest portion of the property near the school. Pedestrian circulation through the community will be provided via a network of sidewalks and paths. It is our intention that all paths and sidewalks be ADA compliant because of the fact, obviously, of the age of the community members. With regards to available utilities, we calculate the anticipated sewer flow being generated by the facility to be approximately 31,000 gallons per day. This was calculated based on current NJDEP criteria. Water consumption for this site can be anticipated a similar number of 31,000 gallons per day, but that does not include fire flow protection. We have in the past had conversations with the Parsippany Sewer Department. We have confirmed adequate capacity of the treatment plant for this project. There was a statement that there may be possible limitations to portions of the distribution network, but that'll be determined as part of the site plan if in fact this application progresses forward. In recent, actually as currently as yesterday, I had conversations with the Parsippany Water Department. As everyone knows, and as that's discussed previously, the Parsippany Water Department is unable to confirm capacity for this project at this time. I found out from the Water Department that the township is in process of developing new well sites in town, updating existing wells, and also bringing to code former well sites. And this is all done in order to address the township's current water needs as well as any future needs. For the record, water and sewer allocations can only be granted once the project receives approval from the township. So we're currently we're in the process right now of processing a use variance application, but allocations from the town, official allocations won't come until once we receive preliminary final approval for this development, if in fact we progress to that point. Extension permits for both water and sewer will be required from DEP as part of the utility extensions. And as I stated earlier, New Jersey Natural Gas has confirmed capacity to service the proposed project. With regards to the proposed buildings, the proposed heights of the buildings are as follows. The cottages located in the central portion here are approximately 16 foot high, and that's using the current Township of Parsippany definition of measuring heights of buildings. The memory care units, again, located in this area here, north and west of the amenities buildings, will be approximately 21 feet high, and the amenities buildings is set at a maximum of 34.5 feet high. The allowable heights in both the R1 and R3 zones, which are the surrounding zones in this area, are a maximum of 35 feet. So all three building types are below the maximum 35 foot as allowed in the adjoining residential zones. As far as the building setbacks from the existing residential properties, the minimal setback from the cottages to any residential property is 50 feet. The minimum setback from the memory care units is 120 feet. I just want to make a note that in this area of the site here, the northwest portion of the site, there is a 50-foot wide right-of-way that comes through here. So that adds an additional 50 foot to the setback, to these building setbacks, to this residential property. And the amenity buildings, the minimum setback to any residential property is 88 feet. For the record, rear yard setbacks in the R1, R3 zone are 20 feet. Front back setbacks in the R1 and R3 zones are 50 foot and 40 foot respectively. I'm going to continue on to my next exhibit.
I'd just like to ask, just so the board is clear, if single-family houses were built on this property, they could be as high as 35 feet. Is that not correct?
That is correct.
And how close to the property line could they be built without a variance in the R1 zone?
They could be as close as 20 feet from the
Right.
rear property line.
So so you could have a 35-foot high, single-family house, 20 feet from the property line. And on this application, you have a 16-foot cottage. How many feet setback?
The minimum setback from any residential line is 50 feet.
So it's 16 feet versus 35 feet in height and 50 feet in buffer versus 20 feet. Is that correct?
Somewhat correct. Yes, yes.
All right, with respect to the memory building, it also meets the 35-foot height, does it not?
Yes.
And how far back is that set?
Well, again, from the residential property, it's 120 feet, but again, there's a 50-foot right of way in this area here. So, but again, the residential property is on the northerly side of the right of way. So that 50-foot right of way adds to the buffer.
As part,
Setback.
as part of your analysis, did you undertake to determine whether, what kind of visibility these structures would have from surrounding residential areas?
We did take a look at that, and that'll be part of a later exhibit. We did do site sections of this property as requested by the planner. So I can present them now, or I could present them later in my testimony.
Well, okay, I just wanted to get in about the height and the setbacks. Now, you continue with your exposition on the design of the site.
Can I ask a question, sir?
Sure.
All right, two,
Mr. Texaris, you mentioned that this is a 12-acre site and we have 150 units going in. If they were all residential developments in there, how many houses could be put in that site?
I believe the number we came up with was 16.
16. Okay, thank you.
so I have two questions. You said the entrance was through the church and the church is selling part of the property, but I assume it's going to continue as a going concern or a going church?
Yes.
Okay. Second question is, if we approve the project, how does that affect the probability, or does it not at all affect it, of getting the water rights? Does it inherently say since we approved it, you have to get it? Or could you theoretically get an approval from our board and not get the water rights?
Well, it's like any other project. If you give us the variance, we can't build the project
Yes,
without
Tom.
water and sewer and electric and all of that goes with it. So the answer to your question, to be as direct as possible, I've done projects where we've gotten variances and then we couldn't connect, say, to a sewer or the water, and the project never got built. Because without sewer and water, you can't even build a single family house.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, the water issue, with having affordable units, it puts us in a better position, but it in no way can force the water company to give us water. I mean, because right now, according to the folks I spoke with, they just don't have it. And there's numerous projects online, and some of them are all age-restricted projects and affordable housing projects that are in line for water. So it betters our chances, but it doesn't force the town to give us water. We can't do that. Okay? Any other questions?
Maybe we should talk about the duration of what this variance might be, because I think our ordinance has that standard clause to move forward within a year.
Well, would move forward being submit a preliminary and final site plan?
Refers to a building permit.
Yeah, I don't see that happening within a year.
This is our application for a use variance. We get the use variance, we then have to come before this same board with a site plan, and we have to meet all of your site plan requirements. So we're focusing now on the use variance, and we'll focus on the site plan if and when we get the use variance.
You understand what I'm saying? I don't want to get us in a loop here where we keep coming back to the variance because we haven't met a time schedule and it expires.
This is a use variance. This is has nothing to do with the availability of utilities or anything else. It's we have a proposed use, which is what is shown on the plan, and this is the zoning board of adjustment asking the board of adjustment to exercise its jurisdiction with respect to hearing and granting use variances.
The only other question, Mike, you commented you thought you could get 16 houses on roughly 12 acres of land when the lot size required is 40,000 square feet. Do you have some kind of sketch?
No, I didn't prepare a sketch. I just, if I recall, I did that a while ago. It was just a math exercise.
The width requirement is 150 feet in the R1 zone, right?
Yeah, I didn't take any of that.
And you add a half a street width to that, you're over 43,560, which is the acre. I don't know how you get to 16. I think, like, I don't want to belabor it. Maybe we just talk about it sometime later.
Just so, I mean, I've said this before, and I'll say it now, this is an inherently beneficial use. It, by virtue of statute and the law in the state of New Jersey, it satisfies the positive criteria. So comparing it to what could be built under the R1 zone is really not a relevant consideration. The considerations are whether or not there is any adverse effect and whether or not those adverse effects can be reasonably mitigated. So whatever the size of the lots or the configuration of a subdivision for single-family R1 zone houses could be is really not relevant. What we've intended to show is that if it did, in some sense, ever be developed for an R1, you would have houses closer to the houses that currently exist and at a much higher height. As a matter of fact, with respect to the cottages, there would be more than double, and the separation would be less than half. So that's where we are with respect to this application.
Yeah, Mr. Vogel, I think the planner was just trying to, clarify the testimony to give the board the accurate information.
And,
That
and
was all, that was the only purpose.
I'd like to correct that. I'm doing the math now. 12 acres. And then I usually, if I'm estimating how many lots I could get on a property, I take the total area and multiply it by 80% because taking into consideration roads and things like that. So if you-
I don't think we have to do this as a
well,
function of our testimony on behalf of this application.
just to clarify, it comes out to 10. It comes out to 10 lots.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, I'll continue with the conceptual stormwater management plan. This was submitted again as part of the original application. Dated 12/16/2020 is the revised date on this plan. Based upon current NJDEP regulations, this property would be considered a major project because of the addition of more than 0.25 acres of impervious surface and the proposal of more than 1.0 acres of disturbance. That's right out of the DEP regulations. This would require the project to meet or exceed the guidelines established in the New Jersey Stormwater Best Management Practices Manual published by the DEP. I believe that manual was last revised in March of 2021. Because we are a major project, we would need to do the following as a minimum. With regards to water quantity, we would have to reduce the runoff from the 2, 10, and 100-year pre-developed storm events by 50%, 25%, and 20%. With regards to water quality, 80% of the total suspended solids must be removed from the proposed on-site drivable surfaces. Drivable surfaces meaning roads, parking spaces, and aisles, or driveway aisles. We would also have to address the groundwater recharge. The existing groundwater recharge rates in the precondition must be maintained or increased in the post-condition of this project. So those are the guidelines that we would have to meet with regards to the DEP criteria. In addition, the DEP strongly recommends addressing these requirements using green infrastructure, a best management practices technique as defined in their manuals. Possible techniques that we could probably use for this project would be underground storage of roof water using large diameter perforated pipes, pervious pavement, small scale bioretention basins, and infiltration basins. The introduction of these techniques will be dependent on the soil and groundwater conditions, which will be explored should the application advance. Now, this application, as you can see, shows a large detention basin, which is located in the southerly portion of the site. The overall stormwater management plan for this project would consist of a series of pipes, inlets, manholes, and head walls, which will collect the stormwater from the project and discharge it into the proposed detention basin. The basin will be designed to control up to and including the 100-year storm event with the necessary reductions as I discussed earlier. This basin will eventually discharge into the storm system that I described earlier that's located on a church property. And again, these discharges will be reduced to the percentage I previously discussed. That's basically all I have for the stormwater management. Right now, I just show a preliminary layout. But again, if this application advances, we're going to have to address the DEP criteria as I just described. The next exhibit I'd like to discuss, and this is not it.
This is IT. Can I interrupt one moment?
Sure.
I'd just like to get Mr. Holloway to test his audio to see if it's working.
Who's talking?
But I don't think it's working.
Chaz, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, you're good. Thank you.
Can you
That's
hear
all.
me?
Oh,
Yeah. Yes.
I can hear you, Chaz.
Okay, thanks, guys.
thank you. I hate to interrupt, but I just wanted to make sure he was capable of communicating.
Thanks,
I
Earl.
get my camera up, it's no big deal.
Not a problem. Okay, the exhibit now on the screen is the conceptual lighting plan. This has a revised date of 12/04/2020, and again, it was submitted in December as part of the other maps that I've been going through as part of this application. This is the lighting plan that we previously proposed. It's made up of we use 16-foot high LED lighting fixtures in all driveway and parking areas. Any and all fixtures located adjacent or near a residential area will be installed with house side shields.
I'm sorry, what display am I looking at here? Because I didn't see it change.
This is the conceptual lighting plan.
Titled what? This is 3 of 10 or 5 of 10?
The lighting plan is 7.
I don't have that up. I don't see that on my screen.
What do you have on your screen?
5 of 10.
Yeah, it does say 5 of 10.
Yeah. Okay.
The one I'm looking at 7 of 10.
Well, that's why I'm asking the question. I don't see the lighting stuff on what I'm seeing. Anyway, go ahead.
Okay, does anybody see 7 of 10?
No.
It is part of the package submitted, correct?
Yes.
So at what they're looking at is at the bottom of the plan. It looks like it's in the computer. Maybe when you scanned it in, it says 5 of 10. And then to the left and to the right, there's arrows that you could click on that would move it from the 10 pages that you have scanned in. So it may be that the 5 of 10 number is different than what that plat number is. I just can't see it because it's your markings on the plat itself are fuzzy.
Perhaps he could zoom in on the date that's on the plan itself, on the
Yeah.
title block.
Now you're testing the limits of my,
Yeah.
let me see if I can do this here.
Do you have multiple screens?
No,
You don't. Okay, because you could have been sharing the wrong screen. That's why I asked.
okay. This is 7 of 10. This is the conceptual lighting plan. Is this the same plan everybody else has?
Well,
Yeah, but it's,
This is
said-
it. I can
Yes.
see the 7 and 10. I blew up the exhibit. Down lower right hand corner in a circle, 7 over 10.
and at the bottom it is annotated as it was scanned in 5 of 10. So I
That's
agree.
correct.
It is the fifth page
Oh.
that he scanned, but the
I-
drawing itself is 7 or 10.
I
Yes.
see.
That's how it is.
I-
It is correct.
I see the confusion.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, well, as long as we're on the right
That
page.
wasn't me.
Okay, that's fine. Okay. All right, so again, we're gonna be using 16-foot high LED lighting fixtures as part of the driveways and the amenities parking lots and the parking area or the drive area in front of the amenities building. Outside the driveway and the parking areas, we intend to use low-level ground-mounted bollards. That would be for the pathways and also for the emergency access drive that that circles the memory care units. Building mounting security lights will be installed throughout the entire complex. And with regards to the driveways, we need to do additional research in these areas here with regards to the proposed driveways. Because what we have to do is we have to do a study of the existing lighting that's on the church facility now, and we'll upgrade it in order to meet the township standards. But for the most part, the proposed lighting has been designed to meet the township requirements. But the requirements are for more like a commercial type use. So we're beginning to think that, especially in the cottage area, we're probably going to look to reduce the lighting to be more like in like residential areas, like along Rita Drive and Dolly, where you'll find like individual fixtures at intersections, and then for long stretches of road, you might find a single lighting fixture just to shed some light on the roadways. You know, again, we're looking at this because we've been listening to the the neighbors and their concerns with regards to this project. So we're looking for ways to kind of adjust our design to fit more in with the community. And another item we're considering is in the parking lot areas. These are going to be covered, so we're going to be using roof-mounted lighting fixtures, again, LED. And we'll probably consider, if this application progresses, timers on some portions of this of the lighting, like maybe in the area of the amenities building and so on. But again, that'll be conversations between Les, who had testified early, and my office with regards to the lighting. But again, it's a preliminary lighting plan, and we're open for discussions with regards to what the township would like to see in this, in this development. We're going to move on again to the next display, which is the conceptual landscaping plan. This is dated again, revised 12/16/20, submitted in December. Again, there's probably a conflicting number in the corner here, but this you're looking at as a conceptual landscape plan. The landscape plan submitted proposed the installation of street trees in the cottage area, along with scattered trees and plantings within the common areas of the entire complex. The most important component of this landscaping plan is the proposed buffering along the residential properties. So I'd like to go over that in a little more detail. I want to start with the north side of the property in this area here, which is the area of lots 106, 106, 142, and 143. And that's this area in here. Again, north of the memory care unit. In this area, the distance from the residential property line to any proposed building is 120 feet. The distance from the residential property line to any proposed retaining wall is 90 feet. in this area, we're going to maintain a 30-foot wide undisturbed area along the property line. And our intention is to infill this area with native materials. Again, in this area here, we have the luxury of a 50-foot, additional 50-foot wide buffer, which makes up that right-of-way area. In this area, again, I had mentioned a retaining wall. As this project progresses, we're looking for ways to reduce the impacts to the neighboring properties. So we're looking at possibly cutting the area of the site in here where we'll say the taller buildings are, particularly the amenities building. So we're looking to cut this area of the site and provide retaining walls to help reduce the visual impacts to the property to the north and also to the properties to the south, especially this lot here. I think it's lot 84. Continuing east, lots 103, 104, 105, which is in this area here. Again, the distance from the residential property line to these proposed cottages is a minimum of 50 feet. Again, we're going to attempt to maintain a 30-foot wide undisturbed area along this property line. And again, infill this area with native materials. Now this area of buffering of 30 feet will be reduced to 20 feet as you move towards the east. And this is the area where the driveway is extended to the east through the church property and it connects to the existing driveway. So this buffer in this area will be reduced to like 20 feet. And in this area, we're considering, again, native materials and also considering the construction of a solid wooden fence. On the south side of the property, which is the area in here, located in this area, lots 89, 90, and 95, we're going to provide a 20-foot wide landscape buffer, planting along the property line using native material. And again, a solid wood fence will be considered in this area as well. The south side of the property and the area of these lots here, where the detention basin is located, the distance from the property line to a proposed building is 90 feet. So what's impacting these lots here would be the construction of the detention basin. We're going to provide a 20-foot wide landscape planting along this common line here. And again, this is another area where a solid wooden fence would be considered, or would be, we would consider proposing a solid fence in this area. The south side adjacent to the school, in this area here, the distance from the school property line to any proposed building is 90 feet again. We're going to maximize this undisturbed area between the parking lot and the property line. Originally, it was 15 feet. Now we're going to propose 20 feet. And again, we're going to infill this area with native material. We won't propose a fence in this area because it's adjacent to the school parking lot. And finally, on the west side of the property, which is facing the school, the distance between the school property line to any proposed building is 80 feet. And we're going to maintain a 40-foot wide undisturbed area between any proposed improvement to the school property. And again, this area might also contain a retaining wall, but again, we're looking into that a little bit closer to see if the introduction of retaining walls will reduce the impact of the proposed construction. As far as the site, I think that's concludes my testimony. I do have site sections that we could go through now, if you'd like. These sections were requested by Mr. Chadwick. He thought that it would be helpful to the board to prepare some site sections to show the board and members of the public what this site would look like, when hopefully someday it's constructed.
Well, would you compare the elevation of of the property where the amenities building is proposed as compared to the elevation of the properties that are surrounding the site and developed for single-family homes?
Well, we didn't detail it, we didn't detail it that much, but we were probably looking at a, you know, at least a 4 to 6 foot cut in this area. So, you know, in this area here, the existing elevation would be cut, you know, 4 to 6 feet. You know, so it would be lower than the surrounding properties. But again, we didn't prepare a detailed grading plan as part of this application. So these are all things that we're currently considered to, again, reduce the impacts to the neighbors.
And with respect to the location of the cottages directly adjacent to the side of the property, can you determine whatever vertical views there might be from the single family homes?
We do show in the side sections the location of the single family homes. You know, the property is located on the south side. Because they're smaller lots, will be impacted a little bit more than the properties to the north. The properties to the north, for the most part, are much larger lots, and the houses are located closer to the road. So the distance between our development and those houses are, you know, it's a much greater distance there than they are on the south side of the property.
Is there any other aspect of the site that you have not described?
I don't believe so. I think I've covered everything.
I have a question
I
about
have a
the
I'm sorry.
basin, if I can interject. The detention basin presumably is going to hold the runoff from that site, correct?
That is correct.
On a summer like this, where we had a significant amount of rain, and then we had that storm about a month ago, would that detention basin be retaining the water, or is it just to temporarily hold it while it goes somewhere else?
Well, if the soils plays out, this basin here will be a combination of a detention and an infiltration basin. But you know, detention basins are just that. They detain the water and they hold the water, and you know, and what they do is they reduce the flows, you know, that exit the basin to pre-development conditions.
Understood.
So-
So in a summer like this, are the neighbors whose property abut that basin going to be dealing with mosquitoes from the standing water in there?
No, there should be no standing water in this basin. I mean, the standing water in this basin should, I think the DEP regulates that to be no more than like 72 hours. So when you design an infiltration basin, there's a timing mechanism that you have to meet. And if you don't meet it, then it can't be an infiltration basin. So yeah, the water's not going to sit there for days on end. It's going to infiltrate into the ground. And again, it has to infiltrate in 72 hours.
Okay. And would that, I assume that's designed not to seep into the neighbor's properties then, correct?
This design will have to meet DEP requirements. It'll have to be reviewed by Mr. Holloway and meet all the municipal. It can have no effect and will have no effect on any surrounding properties. It has to meet that kind of design criteria. It will have no effect on any outside property.
And the DEP does have specific criteria addressing infiltration and addressing that particular item. You know, how your infiltration basin affects you know, adjacent structures. So yeah, that's all covered in the manual.
I heard you talk about fencing as arbitrary and up to you. My question is, when it comes to the memory care, what's to prevent people under the memory care in the memory care units, excuse me, from walking away? There's no fencing in those areas to prevent that?
Okay, the fencing I'm discussing is landscaping types of fencing. As far as the, the fencing in this area to address the memory care patients, that's not something that is that's not my expertise. That's more of the operator's expertise. And all that stuff would be if this application proceeds to preliminary and final site plan, we're going to have to show detailed drawings of how those memory care patients are handled.
Let me just interject. Mr. Stretch, in his testimony, did respond to that issue. And if you don't feel that there's sufficient information in that regard, I'll bring him back at some point and you can specifically address that.
Okay.
I have another question along that same side with the basin there, and I'll acknowledge you probably answered this and I missed it somewhere. Can you just very briefly describe the buffer that will protect those residents from seeing the property and being hit by the lights from that property?
We're talking in any particular area or in the basin area?
In the basin area, I'm assuming that's kind of a lower clear-cut area. So what kind of protection will those residents have?
Well, like I said, originally proposed like roughly a 10-foot buffer in this area, but we've increased that. There's a comment in Mr. Chadwick's letter with regards to minimum buffer requirements in this zone. So we're going to increase that buffer to 20 feet, and then we're going to add a solid fence to that area. We may be able to increase that buffer by adding, portions of a retaining wall in the basin. I would prefer not to do that, but it's the board's pleasure. But I mentioned the fencing in areas where, in some areas we have, for example, as I stated, to the northeast, like areas of 30 foot wide that are going to remain undisturbed. In the areas to the south, we don't have that opportunity. So that's why I talk about introducing solid fencing in those areas. But we'll make every attempt to buffer the residents from this development.
Any other board members have questions of this witness?
Yes, this is Casey. I have two questions. Right in the beginning, you said that this development will be a highland planning area, but it does not apply to this application. Is that because of some timing thing, like that you had applied before township highland confirmation or something?
Well, I spoke to the Highlands folks, and this area, for one, is located in the sewer service area. So that kind of leans towards not having to meet the Highlands criteria. And again, this is not in the preservation area. This is in the planning area. So I had numerous conversations with the Highlands folks, and I was told by them that this property would not fall under their guidelines.
Okay. And I do have a question. Concern about the detention basin.
Casey, could I interrupt a second? Mike, could we follow up on that? Have you applied for a certificate of exemption from Highlands?
No.
Because the township has proceeded to a certain phase as of December of last year. Now, I don't know where it stands in terms of processing of phase two. But in another application, we had to deal with certificate of exemption. Did you discuss that with them?
No. I mean, the conversations, I mean, this application's been obviously around for a while, and, my discussions with them were early in the games. So, I mean, I could revisit them, I give the Highlands call tomorrow, and I could get their, an updated, opinion of what they think. Or apply for an
I
exemption.
think we should have that information when we reconvene and whenever that is.
I believe in December.
Sorry,
We
Kate.
can do that.
Okay, so I am also concerned about the detention basin, close to the neighbors of Rita Drive on the north side. I personally do have I'm not an expert, but my personal experience is that the place I live, we have a lot of issues with the mosquitoes, and we call the Morris County Mosquito Commission, and the very first thing they came and said is that, oh, you have a detention basin, that's where the mosquitoes are breeding. I'm just wondering, why. I mean, I thought that water doesn't stay there, and even in our detention basin, water doesn't stay there. It may be, day or two, maybe, if, on a heavy rain. But that was identified as a mosquito breeding ground, and that's why I'm a little bit concerned for the neighbors here.
Okay, yes, so, and that's a legitimate concern, but let me just say this. Number one, it has to meet DEP regulations. Number two, it has to meet your regulations. And number three, if it turns out that a detention basin does not work or would have an adverse effect on adjacent properties, although it would be more costly, you would then have to put in underground systems that are large detention pipes and whatever that do not have an effect. And so the design that will come about will be one that will have to be approved by Mr. Holloway, will have to be approved by the DEP. And if an above ground detention basin is not workable and consistent with the regulations or has an adverse effect on the people next door, we'll have to build something underground.
Can we fast forward to that point, preserve that as a buffer, undisturbed, and build the underground pipes you speak of?
Yeah, but that's not a problem.
Well,
We've put
yeah,
it, you put the pipe in and you take the area and then you restore it and put in natural growth. That's a recognized methodology of doing something in a buffer zone.
And that's something the applicant's willing to do? Forego that?
I'm not willing to give the nod on that. I mean, we're talking about, a fairly, large project here. I mean, I could look into possibly handling some of the infiltration requirements using underground pipe.
Yeah, but before we get into the weeds, a stormwater management plan and a stormwater design is a function of site plan. And it's something that has to come back to this board, and it is not an issue with respect to use variance application. I understand the concern. It is one that we are sensitive to and will be addressed on site plan if you approve the variance. As a matter of fact, once the variance is approved, you may tell us on site plan, you don't want the detention basin there, you want it in some other spot on the property. That's your call. That's your ability to control site plan. So rather than talk about something which may or may not be a concern on site plan, we're focusing really on what is the use variance aspect.
Understood, but these are things that are getting, that are being presented to us. So it's almost like you're presenting them. We're trying to ask questions, and then when we do, you say, kick the can down the road, and we'll deal with that later. But you've heard two board members express the same concern about a significant aspect of the plan you just presented to us.
Yeah, and all I have said is that their concern will be met, and it's subject to their review when we get the site plan. And we understand it. And as I've said before, if that is a concern at the site plan portion, we'll address it, and we have to address it to your satisfaction. And if you're not satisfied, you wouldn't approve the site plan. And if it doesn't meet DEP regulations, it wouldn't be approved. If it didn't meet Mr. Holloway's review, it wouldn't be approved. If it had an adverse effect on the surrounding properties, it wouldn't be approved.
I guess
Mr.
I
Vogel,
think
your
I think the
position
board
right
members
now-
are, I think the board members are, maybe they're concerned about negative criteria with granting this variance. I don't know what's in their mind, but I think maybe that's why they're asking these questions. I don't know.
My concern, Mr. King, is Mr. Vogel's making it very clear that these objections and concerns are part of the site plan approval. But my concern right now is, why would we grant a variance for use if all these conditions are conditioned upon site plan approval at a later date? I mean, is the horse before the cart here?
Well, that's why I brought up.
Yeah.
There's certain negative things. I know we haven't gotten to traffic, but
Right.
there's certain things that the granting of the variance for this use, could affect that negative criteria, that the use could affect negatively, maybe drainage. And I think that's where the board is going. Again,
Yes.
I don't know what they're thinking, but I think they're asking these questions to see if they indeed do grant the variance, the requested relief, how that relief could negatively affect, the existing neighborhood and the zone. So I think that's why these questions are being asked. They don't have to be specific, but I think they're asking, information about how, I guess, that these critical issues can be addressed to their satisfaction, not designed, because we know the site plan goes into the more, the weeds, the details of the design.
Well, is the concern of the board, the water in the basin? I mean, I've designed basins with hard channels, and the water, it rains, the water goes through the basin, and that's the end of it. Now the state doesn't require, but they require infiltration. I mean, there's other ways to address the infiltration. I could use underground storage pipes and things of that nature. But I don't know if I would suggest a underground basin, for this entire site. I think it would be pretty monstrous. But there are ways I can address the infiltration issue and not have it in the basin.
And when you say monstrous, do you mean in terms of the engineering or the labor or the cost?
All
Or
three.
all of the above?
All three. Yeah. I mean, if you do an underground basin with pipes and stone, I mean, you're probably looking at it to get at least twice its size, maybe 2.5 times the size as you see it now. But again, I think Mr. Vogel's right. I think we're getting ahead of ourselves. I mean, I don't have any soils testing on this site that leads me to believe, what options I have before me. So I can only note that the board is concerned about the detention basin.
Let me just make a commitment that whatever stormwater management plan we come up with, our commitment is that it will meet DEP regulations and it will meet the requirements set by the township and as approved by your township engineer. That's our commitment. We will do it. I'm sure that when you look at what's been put up on a map and you say, okay, that's adjacent to some houses, are they going to suffer from it? And that's a legitimate concern of a member of this board. And my answer to you is, if it doesn't work, if it doesn't meet those regulations, and if it's going to have an adverse effect on anybody next to it, then that plan will not be approved. It will not be regulation. Let me say another thing. On many projects, you'll find detention basins in a buffer zone or adjacent to houses. They create an area that is for the most part grassed and growing and is wet for a minimal period of time. Certainly not more than 72 hours based upon DEP regulations. And it's really it's got to be a pretty large storm for it to take that long to get out. And for what the people had that are adjacent to that, really looking at something that's natural and green rather than having a building.
Mr. Vogel, I appreciate that, and we're beginning to beat the horse to death here, so we'll move on. But I do want to say that legalese of just saying it'll meet DEP requirements will not satisfy me, because DEP requirements are minimal to the requirements that the residents will have to protect their quality of life.
And that's why I said both. I
I
said
appreciate that. Thank you.
we will meet what the DEP says, and we will meet what the township says, and it will have to pass muster with Mr. Holloway. I directly use your name.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Could I ask a question? Mike, you said you did not do any soil testing, or you did do some?
There was some soil testing done, but it was more to see what the materials were with regards to construction of buildings. We didn't do any permeability testing or things of that nature. I mean, that's the information I would be looking for. You know,
That might be very helpful in terms of how long this water is going to sit in this basin. If it's all clay and whatever rocks, we're going to have to talk about something else. If it's not, I think Mr. Kaplan would understand the permeability.
I could review the geotech report and see if it leads me to think that, you know, these materials are, you know, permeable or not. I mean, that I can do.
The only other question, where's this water go?
This site and most of this drainage runs from the west to the east. There's a drainage system there in front of the church that runs from Rita Drive to Dolly Drive. It's like a 36-inch pipe, maybe a little bit larger. So it runs again from south to north. So I would believe that this discharge eventually is going to tie into that, because that's where the water goes now. I know there was some comments made in one of the reports with regards to keeping the stormwater runoff on our site. And we, you know, 100% intend to do that.
Anyone else from the board or experts have any questions? The engineer? All right.
Bernie, I just
Mr.
wanna
Bryce, are you
mention
there?
I'm here, and I've been here for about 15, 20 minutes.
Mr. Bryce's hand is raised. If we could unmute him.
Does he have questions for this witness?
I'd like to know, would you like me to unmute him? Or would
Yes,
you like me to
unmute
make him
him.
Yes.
Would you like me to make him a panelist? I can do either one.
Just
Why
unmute.
don't you make him a panelist for the moment?
Okay, that's what I'm going to do. Thank you.
Let me know when.
Okay, Mr. Berkowitz, can you hear me?
Yes, that Mr. Bryce?
That is me.
You have questions for this witness?
I certainly do, but I beg the board's indulgence, just briefly. After listening to Mr. Vogel's commentary as to the testimony given by his engineer, I do want to let the board know that there is ample authority. I'm going to cite House of Fire v. Clifton Board of Adjustment, 379 NJ Super 526, which is an appellate division case, 2005, where the court held that bifurcation may not be appropriate if the board considers the use variance and site plan issues so interrelated that both applications should be considered in a single administrative hearing, at which the board would decide the negative criteria based upon the entire plan submitted. So it is completely within this board's discretion as to whether or not certainly more robust testimony as to site plan details that will have an effect on the negative criteria are advanced in this application. Simply because the applicant seeks a bifurcated application does not mean that the board is bound to concede and yield to that request. But I do want to start beating a dead horse that was actually just discussed. I'm just going to dovetail right into the stormwater management. So, sir, can you hear
No,
me?
Mr. Bryce, I mean, that's one of the reasons why I spoke up. It also means that the board does not have to grant the variance relief if it has questions regarding the potential negative criteria. I mean, the case is the applicant's case, and they proceed as they do, and here they proceeded on a bifurcated application.
Yes, Mr. King, thank you. I don't disagree with that at all. But I do want to follow up with the witness. I don't know if the witness can hear me.
I can hear you.
Okay, sir, my name is Jim Bryce. I'm an attorney. I represent Parsippany Friends of Green Space. And I do want to start my question regarding the actual stormwater management, because the colloquy that occurred between your testimony and Mr. Vogel's comments and the board's questions lacked a lot of clarity to me, because there was some discussions between detention versus infiltration basins. And if my understanding is correct, under our current stormwater management regulations, there's an opportunity for either or both an infiltration or a detention basin, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so it is possible that when you ultimately do testing that you have not done yet, it becomes clear that the only alternative may be possibly a detention basin. That detention basin would most likely hold water for longer than an infiltration basin, correct?
Well, there's limits to how long the basin can hold water.
Okay, are the limits different for infiltration basins from detention basins?
I don't believe so.
You don't believe that there's any difference in water retention time between a detention basin and an infiltration basin?
Well, I know the reg states that the infiltration basins have to drain within 72 hours. As far as a detention basin and how long it takes to drain, I mean, again, I haven't done any calculations on this, so I really couldn't tell you that.
Would you agree that the amount of water that could be in the detention basin could actually encourage mosquito growth, as an example?
No, I don't. For a detention basin that's going to drain eventually, no, I don't believe so. I mean, what
Are you
breeds?
aware of any detention basins in the state of New Jersey that actually have largemouth bass in them?
Yeah, I know that, but they're not detention basins; they're retention basins.
Okay. Could you possibly have a retention basin on this site if the soils and other, I guess, requirements that you have to look into require a retention basin?
It could turn out to be that way, yes.
Okay. So if there was indeed a retention basin here, which you cannot commit to not having, that could have an effect on neighboring property owners, correct?
In what way?
Wildlife, mosquitoes, insects, things of that nature.
Well, I don't know how it I mean, are you saying that lakes and ponds in the state create mosquito problems?
Yes.
Yes.
Do they? Do they?
I I live by the Delaware River. I mean, that's a moving body of water. I don't recall. I mean, there are mosquitoes. There's mosquitoes everywhere.
Okay. Are there more around standing bodies of water? How about that?
I would say yes.
Okay. So now here's the question. You have not done the soil logs or soil examination. That would be
Correct.
necessary. Okay. You have not really done anything except a conceptual review of stormwater management for this particular property, correct?
Correct.
Nothing that you have on this particular conceptual plan, as I'll call it, is guaranteed to be there if you were approved for a D variance and went for a site plan approval, correct?
That is correct. I think
So it could change.
I think Mr. Vogel went through that though. I guess that's what
Okay,
you're,
well, just, my point is this, the plans that the board is looking at now, if they were to grant a D variance, have the possibility to change significantly at a site plan or a
Not
subsequent site
true.
plan.
Objection, that's not
No.
true. Mr. Bryce is acutely aware, and I'll leave this to Mr. King. When you make an application for a use variance, you show the plan. The only change that's going to come if the use variance is granted is if the same board wants some change to the site plan. But the use that's approved is the use that was applied for and granted by the board. So Mr. Bryce is trying to create an impression that we submit a plan, but then we can do whatever we want. It's not the plan that we're proposing. That's not correct, and that's not the law. I'll leave it to
Let me
King to give the
clarify my
board what
question.
the law is.
I'll withdraw the question. Let me ask you this, Mr. And I don't want to, Testores,
yes.
Textores,
Yeah, that's it.
if you come across during more in-depth site evaluation, various engineering concerns, not just related to stormwater management, but let's say boulders and other types of physical attributes to the property, it's possible that you may want to move around some of the proposed structures, correct?
I don't think I would have the ability to do that. I mean, the board is reviewing this plan. Could there be minor changes to it? Could I change a building 2 feet? Yeah. Can I switch the cottages with the amenities building? No. Be a different approval.
Would it be, or let me ask you this. Could you remove things from this plan, but strike that? What's before the board right now is not a fully engineered site plan, is it?
That is correct.
Okay. It doesn't comply with the township's requirements for preliminary site plan approval, does it?
No.
Okay. It's missing a lot of material information that's otherwise required for a site plan approval, correct?
For preliminary and final, correct.
Okay. This is more of a conceptual plan, although somewhat more engineered than just a basic drawing. It's conceptual nonetheless, correct?
Correct.
Okay. As a conceptual plan, this is not exactly what you're looking to get approved at this point in time because it's simply a conceptual site plan.
That's not true.
Objection, it is
That's
the
not true.
plan. Objection, it is the plan we have filed. It is what we are seeking a variance for.
This is not a conceptual plan. This is a use variance application. This is more than a concept plan. A concept plan, I walk in and I say, hey, what do you guys think? I mean, we're not doing that here. We're explaining to the board what we propose.
I understand.
Minor modifications, of course.
But am I correct, sir, that this particular plan is not necessarily the site plan that you will ultimately propose if you do achieve a D variance at this hearing?
Objection, that question has been asked, it's been answered. This is the plan that is the subject of this application. It is the plan we are asking the board to act on.
My question still stands, Chairman.
If we had enough information for a site plan, we wouldn't be here. We would file for a preliminary final site plan with variances. But we're not doing it. That's not the subject of this application. We're asking for a use variance.
That's correct. And you're not presenting all of the, as you admitted to and conceded to, you didn't do a full evaluation of soils. You didn't do a full evaluation for producing a site plan, correct?
You're mixing words. You're mixing applications again. Yes, but again, this is not a site plan application. This is an
For
application
example,
for a use variance.
you're saying that there may be fencing, there may not be fencing, correct?
Mr. Price, if you could just let him answer, let the witness answer, please.
There could be not fencing. If the board instructs me to put fencing there, I'll put fencing there.
All right. Now, you did indicate, for example, that you did an initial evaluation and you had an environmental, I guess, specialist come in. You did not obtain an LOI as of yet, correct?
No, we did not.
You don't know the extent of what the regulated environmental activities are on the site, except as to the preliminary opinion you obtained?
That is correct.
Okay. As to the lighting that you put forward in that lighting plan, did that lighting plan look at overglow and analyze, I guess, lumens on adjacent property owners?
We did submit a grid point analysis as part of this application.
And did that grid point analysis take into account, let's say, a property on Rita Drive and what it would see as far as your lighting plan is concerned?
Yes, it does.
Okay. And the extent of a lighting, let's say in the middle of Rita Drive with your lighting plan, that would be based upon 16-foot tall LED lighting, building mounted lighting, and also bollard lighting, correct?
That is correct.
And that would be more significant than if there were several homes in the back there, correct? I mean, that's a lot of lighting that's, as you indicated, for more of a commercial site, correct?
Again, but again, I said that we would like some input from the board and from the engineer with regards to what type of lighting they would consider for this type of environment. We'd be more than happy to reduce the lighting in the cottage area. And as I stated earlier, we'd be more than happy to put certain lighting lights on timers. And we'd be willing to put house shields on all the lights.
But lighting does have an impact on adjacent property owners, correct?
Not if it's done properly.
Are you saying that if it's done properly, the neighboring property owners on, let's say, Rita Drive would never see any type of lighting on your proposed facility?
Well, what do you mean by seeing, like being negatively affected by lighting, or see a light?
Well, would they see lights?
Well, you can see stars. I mean, they're pretty far away. I mean, are you telling me that a star is negatively infecting the people on Rita Drive? I mean,
I'm just asking if they'd be able to see the lights.
Physically see a light, yes. Would it affect them negatively? I don't believe so. Not if the plan is done correctly.
Did you develop the plan to that level of detail that you can affirmatively say to the board that the lighting that you propose will have no negative effect on property owners?
We did submit a grid point analysis of the lighting. Could we look into it in more detail? Yes, we could do that.
Okay. So you wouldn't be comfortable making that affirmation to the board at this point in time?
I think I did.
After you look at it more?
Well, again, I submitted a grid point analysis for review by the township. If the township has an issue with it, I'll make modifications to it.
Okay.
The town does have certain lighting standards that need to be met.
And do those lighting standards account for a similar type of use like this in the middle of a residential R1 zone district?
Yes, the lighting standards are the lighting standards. You have to meet certain criteria at the property lines.
Okay. Now, talking about water and sewer, I know that you did discuss that. Are you familiar that the township of Parsippany Troy Hills is currently under a scarce resource order from the Superior Court?
Yes, I think I went over that.
Yeah.
I've had numerous conversations with the water department, and they're moving towards addressing that situation.
But as of right now, if you were to get approved, you wouldn't have water available, is that correct?
That's correct.
Looking at the parking concerns, and I'm sorry to shift like that. I know that you testified as to parking, and on your plans that you submitted, I believe that you actually provided parking details, correct?
With regards to spaces, or?
Yeah, I believe that you have proposed parking calculations.
Yes.
I think that you indicated that at least the total required spaces you put down is 185.
Yes, those calculations were done in conjunction with the information I received from the traffic consultant. And based on township criteria.
What I'm trying to figure out is why there's a variation between yours and the traffic report, where the traffic expert,
Well,
his report.
well, just be aware
So-
that the traffic report that was submitted addresses the previous application. This application has been amended, and we fully intend to submit a revised traffic report. But the traffic report you're reviewing now, I believe, discusses the previous application. That's the
Well, I
application.
don't.
Go ahead.
Well, I'm looking at, and I know that this is not your report, and I don't want to make you testify as to this, except that table 7 of that report, where it lists the different types of land uses and the ordinance requirements for the various uses having nothing to do with the access, comes to a parking requirement of 243 spaces, where you come to a conclusion of 185. And I'm trying to figure out why that there's a difference there. Do you have any reason to suspect that the required spaces as indicated in the traffic engineer's report is incorrect, or you're correct, or do you have any explanation for that?
I know we had conversations and we agreed upon the 185. And that number will be reflected in the revised report.
And how did you come to that 185 number? So I'm looking at the proposed parking calculations, and they're quite different from the ones that the traffic expert put together. And I would assume that the traffic expert was looking at the ordinance. He actually indicates the ordinance parking rates. When he comes to a conclusion of 243 is total required parking space and anticipated parking demand 183. So the question I have to you is, this number that you put on your detail for your plan indicate what you believe is the required versus what would otherwise be required by the ordinance?
Yes.
Okay.
And
So if you were to
again, his revised traffic report will reflect that 185 number, and he'll back it up with the reasons why we came up with that number.
Okay. But would you disagree that using the ordinance, the number is higher, the required parking spaces by ordinance is higher than the 185 that you
No,
enumerate?
no, I don't believe that. You have to remember, in these types of uses, originally, the original concept was that we discussed possibly having more interaction with the public here. We're no longer looking at that anymore. So the parking calculations are based on this community. And, when you do parking calculations for these types of communities, you calculate based on the amount of people who are going to be there. We did add a slight bumper or a slight increase to include guests and those types of folks. But the 185 will be reflected in the next traffic report, I assure you.
Okay. And just looking at those parking calculations and that buffer that you just spoke of, you anticipate 21 spaces for guests and other people coming to the site?
Yes.
Now, do these parking calculations take into account various parking demands at times of shift change when certain nurses or aides in the assisted living component of the project are going to be coming and going?
You're moving away from my expertise. I testified there's 185 proposed spaces. I don't want to start getting into the rationale of, shifts and things of that nature. That'll be dealt with by the traffic consultant.
Okay, so I'll defer the parking demands to the traffic consultant. You believe that he's going to be qualified?
Yes, he's qualified.
And just looking at your plans again and just shifting around a little bit, I see that you did also put in a zoning chart, correct?
I believe so. Can you direct me to the page?
I believe it's right on the first page. You know what? I don't, to be honest with you, and I apologize, having the Zoom or WebEx type of proceeding is difficult, and I'm working with reduced size copies that are not full.
Understood. Well, we do have a zoning chart on the on page 3.
Okay, and that has the minimum and other required bulk descriptions on the left side, and then 4 columns as to required existing lot 96, existing lot 96 remaining lands, and proposed lot 96A3, correct?
That is correct.
Now, just for the benefit, I think, of the public and the board, on the minimum lot area, lot width, and the far left column, in comparison to the required column, those required, I guess, dimensions or quantities are based upon a conditional use standard for a church, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Those do not reflect, which I believe that you testified to, the vast majority of the improvements that your client is proposing are on a lot within the R1 zone district, correct?
That's correct. And
All right.
on sheet 1 of the application, the title sheet, there's a listing there of existing schedule of zoning requirements, and it lists all 3. And it lists the R1 requirements, the R3 requirements, and also lists the churches which are conditional use in this zone.
Okay, and I'm just looking at the zoning chart on page 3. That indicates the minimum lot areas, et cetera, which are for churches. For just the general R1 zone district, just so I want to be clear on the record, it has a different minimum lot area than that's what's required on your zone chart, correct?
Yes, that zone chart reflects churches as a conditional use. It doesn't reflect single-family homes.
Okay, now you're not proposing a church, are you?
There is a church on the property.
But your project isn't a church, is it?
No, it is not.
Okay, so it would really be subject to if just from a sheer zoning perspective, it's an R1 zone district, it would be looking at a minimum lot requirement of 40,000 square foot, a width of 200 square feet, front yard 50 feet.
Yes, we went over that early with Mr. Chadwick.
Okay. And it has a maximum percent lot coverage by building of 10%, correct?
Building coverage, yeah, impervious coverage would be 20%.
But the maximum percent coverage by building is 10%, correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
Per
So
40,000 square foot of lot.
Mhm.
It's not 10% of a 12-acre tract.
It's fair. I just want to say that, the zoning chart, it just sets forth the required amounts based upon something other than what the R1 actually requires. And which leads me to another question. There was some discussion earlier about the, I suppose, the ability of this particular portion of the overall parcel to support single-family housing development. From an engineering perspective, is it feasible and from an engineering perspective, possible to develop single-family homes in that 12-acre area?
Yes, I mean, we went through that calc earlier. I actually corrected myself using 40,000 square foot lots and using a 20% reduction of the 12 acres for roads and things of that nature. You could probably get anywhere from 10 to 11 lots on that property.
Okay. And that density is significantly different than what the density is being proposed for this particular project, correct?
In what regard?
Well, do you know what the density is per acre on this particular project?
Yes.
What's that density?
I think the density calculates as 13 units an acre.
Okay. And if it was developed for single-family dwellings, that would be less than 1 unit per acre.
Actually, it would be a little
Correct.
greater than one unit per acre, but
Okay. But what you're proposing is about 13 times greater in density than what would otherwise be permitted in the R1 zone district, correct?
yes, that's why we're here for a use variance.
Now, I don't want to get into an area of expertise that may better be deferred, but are you aware as to whether or not this project would require an NJDOT highway access permit?
And that I do not know. That'll be, again, that's a question you could ask the traffic consultant.
Fair enough. I don't want to put you on, ask you something in an area that you don't know.
Thank you.
Right now, I'm just looking over my notes to see if there's another area of cross. Oh, yeah, well, the coverage that you list on the zone chart, and this is, I'm just looking for clarification. You list building coverage of 20.7% percent, and that's based upon the 12 acres, correct? And the relative
Yes,
assemblage of all of the buildings proposed, correct?
that is correct.
Okay. And you indicate there that maximum impervious coverage, you indicate 65%, but then you said 60% plus as to proposed lot 96A. Do you see that?
Yes, I see it. I see that, correct.
Okay. Did you actually calculate out what the impervious coverage is for the site?
Not exactly, no. If you would prefer, I could bring that to the next meeting.
Well, I'm just asking whether or not you did it. And, just as a witness here today, do you have a rough calculation of what the proposed impervious coverage is?
I do. That's the 60%. If you're looking for something more accurate, I could bring that to the next meeting.
Well, I only ask because it says 60% plus, and that kind of leaves it open-ended. I don't know if it's there, but it's your application, so I don't know what the actual impervious coverage is, and nor does the board. I do know what the impervious coverage is otherwise allowed in the R1 zone district. I just want to look at one further thing. I think this may apply to you. Oh, does the residential site improvement standards apply to this particular development?
They would apply just for the cottage area.
They wouldn't apply to the assisted living or independent living apartments?
I don't believe so.
Now, I know that there was some testimony in the past regarding parking, regarding the, I guess, the apartments, for lack of a better word. They would like them to all be, I guess, assisted living apartments, but they're not necessarily so. To your understanding, does the difference between assisted living units versus independent living apartments have impacts as to parking demands, traffic demands, and other RSIS concerns?
I wouldn't know that. That's something you'd have to ask the traffic consultant.
Okay, and he'd be the appropriate one for the RSIS as well?
Yeah, I mean, I do know, like I said, we held and as you mentioned earlier, we did use the township standards for parking, but there is a second standard, and that's the RSIS standard, so.
Now, if you can't comply with the RSIS standards, is a waiver or some type of relief required from the state?
Yeah, you would have to ask for an exception to to that section of the RSIS standards.
As you're here testifying today, do you know whether or not that will be required?
No, I do not. What we could do is take a look at the RSIS standards and maybe modify the plan to meet those standards, as well as the standards of the township.
Now, but for the balance of the RSIS parking concerns and other parking concerns, you'd like to defer to the traffic engineer?
Yes.
Just looking at my punch list. All right, as far as the refuse is concerned, that's going to be done independently with is it all going to get collected from even the independent cottages and put into a refuse container?
That's my understanding.
Who's
Again,
going to bring the refuse to that?
That's more of an operational issue. But from my discussions, that's what my understanding is.
All right, so you wouldn't know how the refuse would get from an independent cottage to that container?
No. My understanding was that was done internally, and then a private carter would come and remove the refuse from the site.
Answered the question.
Anything else, Mr. Price?
I'm just, Chairman, thank you. I'm just reviewing my notes. I think that I am going to, just as far as the topography of the site, you indicated that it drains to the north,
No,
but
it drains from the west to the east.
Okay,
It drains from the school to the church.
okay, and then does it go to the south as well?
No, once it enters that drainage system that goes to the church, that's when it goes from the south to the north. But as far as the topography of the site, that goes from the school property towards the church. Or again, from the west to the east.
All right. I do not have any further questions for you at this point. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, now, is there anybody else that's online that is not a client of Mr. Bryce's that has questions for this witness?
Mr. Berkowitz, before you go to the members of the public, I have some questions of Mr. Bryce. There was a memo that went back and forth, I believe, today.
I didn't know you were here, Mr. Hurricane.
Excuse me?
I didn't know you were here.
I announced that a little while ago. Maybe I was on mute. I apologize. I've been here for about an hour.
Okay.
I have some questions of Mr. Bryce and the organization that he represents. Mr. Bryce, is this an unincorporated organization?
Yes, this is simply an unincorporated public interest association.
Has it in any way filed with the IRS for a federal ID number or in
It
any
has
way
not.
filed for nonprofit status?
It has not.
So basically, it's nothing.
Right now, I can tell you this, Chairman, the courts and the municipal land use law have recognized the standing of such unincorporated as public interest associations for purposes of objecting to land use
I understand that it's an unincorporated association. I want to know if it's got a federal ID number or apply for nonprofit status.
No, it does not.
So, are there membership dues for this organization?
There are not. It's completely voluntary.
Are there any requirements to be a member?
I don't know any specific requirements myself, except an interest.
Mr. King, does this sound like it's really an organization?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Does this sound like it's really an organization or just a group of neighbors who have attached a name to something?
It sounds like it's a group of neighbors who joined together and hired Mr. Bryce as their attorney, which is not uncommon.
Mr. Bryce, do you have a letter from a representative of this so-called organization authorizing you to represent these people?
Yes, I do. I have a retainer agreement, sir.
You have a retainer agreement. And okay, you've pretty much answered my question. Thank you, Mr. Bryce.
No problem.
Hurricane, you want to take over the meeting?
No, it's always.
We lost you. I think you're on mute again.
I believe he said you could finish it out.
You're doing an excellent job, Mr. Berkowitz.
I don't know about that, but I'll go back to my previous question. Is there anybody else that is not represented by Mr. Bryce that has questions for the engineering expert?
Yes, we have a couple of hands raised. Our first is Nick Homyak, if we could unmute him.
Hello,
Go ahead, Mr. Comiak, name and address.
Nicholas Homiak, 2609 Avenue, Lake Hiawatha.
Now your questions.
The first question I have is a simple one. The engineer mentioned native materials in the buffer. Can he define what these native materials are?
No, I can't. I'm not a licensed landscape architect. But there'll be one as part of this application, and they'll be able to answer that question for you.
All right, so the material may or may not be North American indigenous. It could be invasive species.
No, it would not be invasive species. That it would not.
Okay. All right. Are you familiar with the term ecological services?
In what regard?
In the ecological services this landscape already provides by being there in the state that it is already. Can you give me one example?
No.
Okay. I'll give you an example.
I'm sure you will.
Wellhead protection areas, all three tiers.
I think
groundwater
this is questions of the witness. It's not testimony. You can
All
provide
right, so-
testimony.
So the witness there had no idea what ecological services was. They said that 60% of this 21.9 acre lot will be impervious surface. Was that true or correct?
That's correct.
Okay, now
12 acre.
this 21.9 acres consists of 13.2 acres of groundwater recharge and 12.07 acres in the same acreage of wellhead protection, all three tiers. So are you aware that Parsippany is in a water deficit?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so do you believe that 60%, which is the total of the groundwater recharge phenomena that this landscape provides already, will not be affected if 60% becomes impervious surface?
Well, I stated earlier, as part of the stormwater management, one of the requirements of the NJDEP with regards to stormwater is groundwater recharge. Existing groundwater recharge rates in the precondition must be maintained or increased during the post-condition.
All right, but I would think that it would be diminished by the impervious surface. There's trees on the property. Have you done an inventory of how many trees, age, and species?
No, we have not.
Or this, according to an impact assessment report that your company did, say that, and I quote, disturbance of this habitat in its entirety. So how could the removal of this plants or trees or vegetation not affect the soil's capability to retain the water?
Well, first off, my firm did not do that report. That report was done by a consultant.
And the consultant did not mention any reference to how this will affect the ecological services that the property is already providing, primarily groundwater recharge in a water deficit area.
Well, again, his job was to visit the site and to identify areas of environmental restrictions, and he did that. With regards to the groundwater, again, as part of our stormwater management plan, we have to maintain the existing groundwater recharge on that site, whether we do it by, we discussed earlier the different types of detention basins. We discussed underground storage pipes, perforated pipes. All these things will allow groundwater to, recharge into the ground. So again, the DEP criteria does not allow you to reduce the groundwater rates as they exist today.
Do you believe that the quality of the water that is going into the basin will not be affected by runoff? That the quality and quantity will not be affected in any way by the runoff and the loss of the vegetation?
Well, the loss of a vegetation is going to increase the runoff as well as the impervious. But again, we have requirements that we need to meet with regards to the DEP for reduction of the quantity and addressment of the quality.
All right,
So
are you
again,
aware that Parsippany in its master plan says that it has to safeguard its water resources and protect its water? I think it's goal number 10 or something, but it is in the master plan.
Okay, and it's probably consistent with with the current DEP regs with regards to runoff and quality and quantity.
And who did you contact exactly in the Highlands that said that this doesn't matter in some way or form because of its in Parsippany in the planning zone?
The statement was first of all, there was no statement made that it doesn't matter. But we reviewed the regulations. We identified the fact that the property is located in the sewer service area. And, I'm going to have to research this now further after hearing Mr. Chadwick, tell me about the situation with the Highlands and Parsippany. You have to remember that this application started a little while ago, and I don't believe I don't remember the woman's last name, but I know her first name is Mary Jude.
Yeah, Mary Jude Haddock-Weiler. She's the liaison for Parsippany, exactly. And we weren't in the Highlands plan at the time, but it doesn't mean that we shouldn't meet the highest standards that we can possibly get, I would think, in a water deficit area.
I'll contact her again in the next few days and discuss the application, and I'll have some information for the next meeting.
Okay, and let me see, do I have anything else? Blah, blah, blah. Oh yeah, and why would you be talking to people in the Parsippany Water Department when you should be talking to either to the people in DEP, which determines water allocation? So I don't understand why you would be carrying on with Parsippany instead of Trenton.
Well, my interest was what Parsippany was doing to address the scarce resource edict. So, I discussed it with representatives of the water department, and they told me where they were at and where they were going. I mean, I didn't have a long detailed conversation with them, but I just wanted to see where I needed information on how this water issue was proceeding, to see if this application that we're presenting tonight was going to have some water sometime in the future.
And the last question would be, your criteria for affordable housing is the minimum requirement, right?
Well, we're not really sure what the requirement is. We've heard a couple opinions on that, but I made a blanket statement earlier, and I'll stand by it, that whatever the requirement is for affordable housing, we'll meet it with this project.
So which you mean minimum requirement?
Yes, the minimum requirement.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Nora, anybody next?
We do have a hand up, but he is on the list, Bob Asaro. He's on the list of who Mr. Bryce is representing.
And he cannot ask questions because he has representation for Mr. Bryce, and he's done that.
Anybody else have questions for this witness?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I do have. This is Ganesh Prasad.
Who is it?
Ganesh Prasad, board member.
Board members.
Oh, go ahead. I don't have a picture here. I just have a name, so it threw me off.
All right, I'm up.
Here's
This
your
is
picture.
for Mr. Textoris. I hope I said that correctly.
That's correct. Thank you.
This is in regards to the detention basin. Based on the life cycle of breeding for mosquitoes, it's 8 to 10 days. So my question would be in regards to the water in the detention basin. Can you design that detention basin so the water drains and let's say we have heavy storm and more than usual water, can you have a pump system or something that will drain that water in that 8 to 10 day cycle? Which would alleviate that whole issue with mosquitoes.
Well,
mosquitoes are all over the place, by the way. I go outside in my house and I don't have a standing water problem. They're there still. So I just want to make that comment in addition.
well, I can say I've never designed a pump system for a detention basin.
Yeah, I've been involved in actual detention basin construction. I know there isn't, but I'm just asking some system where the water can be drained in that, 10 days.
I mean, again, as I discussed earlier, basins need to drain in 72 hours.
Okay.
The concerns earlier were the fact, and believe me, I've seen some basins that have failed and do become mosquito breeding areas. But, those are usually basins that have failed. The DEP has upped their game as far as requirements for these things. So, and we do things like under drains and things like that to ensure that the basin drains and that the water doesn't sit there over 72 hours. So, but I've heard the concerns of the neighbors, and we're going to look into that a little bit more, and I'll have some more information for the next meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Question, Dad?
Mr.
Vogel.
Homiak
No.
raised his hand again.
Who? Mr. Homack?
Raised his hand again. Were we done with the public portion?
I think we are. I think we need to talk about, do we have a date for, was it December 18th?
Mr. Chairman, could I just ask one quick question to Mike?
Sure.
Mike, you showed the exit driveway running through the wetland transition area. Is that a problem or not?
No, I believe there's permits available for that. And, again, the traffic consultant is finalizing his report. So we'll have a little bit more information on the driveways and whatnot at the next meeting.
Fine.
Anybody else? Final questions? Okay. So I guess being 10 to 10, I think starting a new witness at this time doesn't make sense. Mr. Vogel?
Well, I have another witness. You don't want to stay a little longer?
Most of the people here, I think, work the next day. I
I
don't.
don't want to stay any longer.
I didn't expect it. So, what can we do about the next meeting?
Do we have another date?
We
Nora?
have another date. It's December 8th. I wanted to
December
ask
8th.
I wanted to ask Bob, we've had a total of 27 attendees about possibly moving this into public.
Hurricane?
Well, we do that, 150 people show up. What are you gonna do, Nora?
50 people show
You
up,
know-
it gets
you
canceled
know
and
that if
rescheduled.
You know that the neighborhood is going to, if they, here it's gonna be in person, they're gonna come out. And we don't have the facilities to control it.
I
And
understand.
we
I'm
can-
just covering the bases here.
Yeah, no, I understand. We have the ability to cover 150 people on a Zoom type call, correct? Is there any limit on how many people can dial into this call?
What's the max capacity of town hall?
you know what, I don't remember off the top of my head, but the
Not
very
before
first
900.
hearing we had was shut down. We had, what do we have,
This is
165 people?
This is IT. I believe is 160 something. I'm not 100% on that. but
If that's accurate, that's roughly double the max of what I've seen on one of these calls.
But we have to have them socially distant. We're not gonna pack them in like sardines. Guess what? I'm not gonna be there if you pack 160 people into that room.
Right.
All
So
coughing and
let's say
breathing
there's
and
80.
snort.
There's still there's room there.
I don't care. Zoom meeting. Zoom meeting. That's my decision.
December 8th. We had already scheduled it.
Do we need a motion?
We
Was it-
already put this
It
meeting.
was previously the schedule, wasn't it?
It was
All
pre-scheduled. Our
right, so,
last hearing, we announced this date.
all right, so this meeting is now adjourned to December 8th. It's a virtual meeting at 7:30 PM.
Without further notice and all.
Without further notice and any extensions necessary being granted by Mr. Vogel.
Is that correct?
Thank
Mr.
you.
Vogel?
Thank
Mr.
you.
Mr. Vogel, your client will, grant any extensions required?
I'm sorry, I didn't get that.
Your client will grant any extensions required.
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, so then we'll see and hear you all on December 8th.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good Thanksgiving, everybody.
Thank you.
We need a motion.
Anybody else have any business for the board? Motion to adjourn?
How was the winter open, Bob?
I have back-to-back 93s, Dave, yesterday and today. It was good. It was good.
And there's a second, you gotta take a roll.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed to adjourning the meeting? See you all in person next time.
Mr. Willens, how you feeling?
Have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Good night, everyone.
Final
Good
test
night.
tomorrow, I hope. See y'all.
Bye.
Bye.